Welcome to the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Kevin Reichard of Ballpark Digest. No Mick Gillispie this week. Power is out, right, Kevin?
He is in the heart of the hurricane whipping through that part of the country right now. So he reported via text that his power is out and he's not here. He hasn't done his other stuff, his other personal recording either today. So heart goes out to Mick and hope he and his family are okay in Alabama.
To be in the eye of the hurricane, calm. To be in the heart of the hurricane, not so calm.
You know, I have been through a hurricane. I can't imagine going through it twice or three times in a year. Once was scary enough.
So let's get into this. And this was just an NFL Week 1 Sunday from Thursday into the doubleheader Monday. I'm representing my football team. So you wrote an article for Ballpark Digest all about how this year is a milestone year. The headline, milestone a century in the making. No NFL team playing this season at a Major League Baseball ballpark. At last.
Something the NFL has been working towards since 1957 when Lambeau Field was opened. So definite milestone, definite accomplishment for the NFL, which now controls every venue it's in. No sharing, no revenue sharing, no needing to work with a Major League Baseball team on scheduling, no bear-skinned infield for months of the season. Yeah, we're looking at you, Oakland. And right now, every team is control of its destiny.
I mean, that whole idea of taking a handoff at third base, right?
Oh, you know, when I was a kid, you know, and in the story I pointed out that almost every NFL team was playing in a ballpark. So, man, you watch those early morning, early season games, you'd see the Vikings at the Met with the Bear infield. You'd see the Bears at Wrigley. You'd see the Lions at Tiger Stadium. You'd see the Giants at Yankee Stadium. You were reminded all the time that this was being played in a baseball environment. And I mentioned Lambeau Field. That was, you know, kind of the first, you know, even though Municipal Stadium had opened earlier, so the Browns ended up sharing with the Indians for a period of time, although not right away. And you had those multi-use stadiums being used pretty consistently. And then you had the artificial turf coming in on those cookie cutters with the shared facility. And then the 90s saw a lot of football-only stadiums hit the NFL 2000s, and then finally with the move of the Raiders to Las Vegas, Oakland Coliseum was the last multi-use stadium hosting both teams, and it's sort of sad. RFK used to host both as well. It's scheduled to be torn down, so that'll leave the Coliseum as the only cookie cutter left, as well as the last multi-use venue.
I mean, the different things that we look at the old football videos with and say, oh my gosh, for example, the uprights at the front of the end zone rather than at the back of the end zone, so you could run right into them. We are going to look at this 5 years, 10 years, people who did not know, and see an infield in the midst of the football field and immediately call someone up or post on social media or what and say, what in the world is this? What are they doing? Well, this was the norm. You mentioned DC with RFK. Well, my favorite NFL team played in Boston, played first at Boston Braves Field, and their name was the Boston Braves because the NFL teams, how many NFL teams shared the same name as the baseball team? There was the New York Yankees, there was the New York Giants, which have stuck around, and onward. The Brooklyn Dodgers had a football team. So when they went to play at Fenway Park, they had to change their name from Braves because the Boston Braves didn't like that a Boston Braves was not playing at the Boston Braves field, was advertising the American League team. And that's when they changed their name to a name that has now been changed to football team. So it's all been fascinating to me, the history of NFL teams and the stadiums that they tried to find. You detail it in the article, just trying to find anywhere where they could play in the old days. If they found a high school field that was good enough.
Oh yeah, you know, the Packers for a long time played at a high school field in Green Bay, which still stands, which is still used for high school football. And the original ticket windows are still there, as well as part of a clubhouse. And there's Packers history placards everywhere there as well. And you look at and Boston was really interesting because pro football teams bounced around there quite a bit. You mentioned Braves Field. They moved to Fenway. The later Patriots played at Fenway. They played at Nickerson Field, which is what the old Braves home became. And before they moved out to Foxboro in 1971. And people forget about Foxboro. People talk a lot about Arrowhead Stadium as, an NFL-only facility that others modeled after. Foxboro opened a year before that. And so, the Patriots don't really push that history very well either, but they were one of the first teams after the Packers to go football only.
Just fascinating to think about that whole idea of, we are going to support ourselves. We are going to build this stadium, which is going to host how many games over the course of a calendar year?
Yeah, not many. I mean, the economics of NFL football kind of suck. I mean, that's why they're in ballparks when you only play, when 8 home, and at that time it was 16 games. So you would have 8 home games, and you would also have an exhibition or two. 10 events a year is not a lot, which is why the modern, football venue is way different than it was. I mean, we've gone to Lambeau, so we've seen how that facility is used by the community. I believe when we went, when you were swinging through Appleton, there was a prom that night or something. It was amazing how many events they run out of Lambeau. Same with the new Vikings stadium. People said, well, it'll only hold 10 events a year, 12 events. It holds, it's literally every other day there was an event there before the pandemic. My wife's law firm had their anniversary party there. It's an event space. It's not just a football stadium. So the NFL really turned around the economics of football and really took control of the situation. And just like baseball team owners did. So they're event spaces now. They're not just strictly sporting venues.
From something that no longer exists, a baseball/NFL stadium, to something else which is not going to exist this year. Kevin, they canceled the Major League Baseball general managers meeting.
Yeah, that's a little surprising because that's an event that traditionally is very controlled. The press comes, but they're not necessarily really welcomed. And it's sort of a safe space for general managers to meet, to chat, and to sort of talk openly when they can. So having canceled that, and it also looks like the winter meetings, we reported on a couple months ago, there was talk about canceling that. That still might be canceled. So either the general managers are going to meet at the same time as for the winter meetings, which is, I guess possible. I think it's likely they both get canceled. You can do it via Zoom. You can have virtual chats. And right now, the business of baseball is so unsettled that it's hard to make plans for a group event coming up in what'll be 3 months.
As we move forward, so right now we're a couple of weeks away from the end of the Major League Baseball regular season, then into the postseason. At what point would somebody make a decision on the winter meetings and say, it's coming up too quick, we need to say we're going or we're staying?
Well, here's the awkward thing about it. Technically, the winter meetings is a minor league baseball event. It's not a major league baseball event. So when you exhibit there and rent a room like we always do for the Ballpark Digest Awards, we contract with minor league baseball, not major league baseball. And so, but with Pat O'Connor gone from minor league baseball, with David Wright gone, excuse me, I have had people openly wondering, and these are owners openly wondering, who's in charge anymore? And there's some really good people still with minor league baseball, like Scott Poley, the general counsel for minor league baseball. But in general, I wonder who's going to make the big decisions going forward on things like that. I mean, there's an event staff, and I suppose someone above them is going to have to decide. But minor league baseball was sort of built to have things run from the top down. I mean, there were dictates from the top, and there's no top. So I guess someone's going to
Would
have
you
to
say
make
it's
the call.
topless?
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if we want to go there either. Um,
Um, I laughed a little bit in a bittersweet way. You said it's not run by Major League Baseball; it's run by minor league baseball, and I thought, well, soon that's feeling like it's becoming synonymous.
I think in a couple months, once you have the outlines of a deal done, the final decision on winter meetings will be made by Major League Baseball.
Hmm.
And the heck, so what if minor league baseball put down a big deposit on space? They don't care.
Major League Baseball news: the Mets have an owner. Well, soon.
Soon. It's not the guy some people in Major League Baseball wanted to see. Steve Cohen is a hedge fund manager, incredibly wealthy, billionaire, loves the Mets, got involved because he loves the Mets. It's not a business decision for him. It's a following the heart decision. He ended up as the top bidder, reaching like 2.4 something billion dollars for the team, a record set for a North American sports franchise. He outbid the Rodriguez Jennifer Lopez tandem along with their investors, and earlier Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, which owns the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils, and David Blitzer also is a part owner of the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Railriders, excuse me. Ended up dropping out at that valuation, and probably smartly so, because it's forever going to be regarded as sort of overpaying for the team, especially when the other potential bidders had game plans to monetize their purchase. Harris Blitzer does a lot of sports gambling stuff, and you probably would have seen some aggressive move into a sports book situation at Citi Field. A-Rod and J-Lo had a vision for an entertainment complex as well at the ballpark, something the Wilpons could never pull off. Cohen just wants to run the team, and I suppose the feeling is going to be, if I can fill the ballpark up with and sell those final 10% of tickets, I can make money doing it. But I think he's going to find the New York fans are going to be really now loudly demanding he sign every free agent on the market, no matter if the Mets need him or not. And the press is going to have a heyday with this. Boy, if I'm a Steinbrenner, I'm pretty happy that Cohen's there now. You're going to take a lot of pressure off me, because you're gonna have every bit of pressure in the tabloids put on Steve Cohen.
The Mets have a fairly talented team. The problem with them is that they keep on doing Metsy things where you go, oh, what are you doing? What's going on here?
And the farm system has created some great talent. There were previous trades that brought in a lot of talent. They have a philosophy in terms of the organization, the kind of pitcher they love, and it's a pitching-heavy organization. And yet they can't win because they're the Mets. Something always happens. Someone's arm gets, knee gets tweaky, and someone's neck gets stiff, and it's. And I want to love the Mets. I think baseball needs a flagship team like the Mets to be competing. And this year they're not even competing anymore. So, it'll be interesting to see who still hangs around the Mets front office. I mean, obviously a new GM is going to be examined. I mean, if I were Brody, I wouldn't be printing up new business cards anytime soon anyway.
No, a new boss should have his own people in place.
Yeah.
Those people that he interviews, he hires. From him right on down, you don't want it to be the last folks people. It just makes sense.
Right. And people are going to expect a lot out of the team next year, even though Cohen won't probably take control until November. I mean, that's the earliest everyone says you could find the major league owners approving a deal. And if that starts to slip, next year he'll be the owner, but he will have not been able to put much together in terms of a front office and a roster.
I think that fans by and large are more forgiving of teams and ownership as long as they win.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, just win games and don't embarrass me. Don't, when I look to put on my cap and when I look to put on my shirt or jersey or whatever it is, I want to do so with pride. I don't want to walk around in public and have people ridicule me.
It's going to be hard, though. That's a tough division. The Mets could improve and still be in last place next year.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. I like when there's competition. I like when teams set high standards, and when you look around and you say they're good, so we have to be good. But I mean, we're not going to break down the Mets roster. They've got Jacob deGrom. They've got one of the true aces in Major League Baseball, who, as the stats have shown, has thrown harder and harder in every single season. So, I don't. Congratulations to Steve Cohen out of the Mets. Best of luck to them. They were my grandfather's team, so I grew up seeing a lot of white, blue, and orange. I could sing the "Let's Go Mets" WFAN jingle. So we'll see how things go. But news from off the field in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shake out at Citi Field next year. What sort of vision he has for the franchise, the ballpark, the operations, and the players.
To go into minor league baseball. So Beloit is reinventing itself. Beloit for many years carried a reputation that they are trying to step away from with a new stadium and a new identity and a new name. And they have released the 5 finalists for the name. So Kevin, here's what I'd like to do with you. I would like to go through these names in terms of, I want you to choose the one that you would choose if you were in charge. And I would like you to choose the one you think that Beloit is going to choose as its new team nickname, all right?
All right.
Here we go.
All
The
right.
Beloit Cheese Balls. The Beloit Moo, M-O-O, but, you can extend it. I've got an 8-month-old. We moo. The Beloit Polka Pike. The Beloit Sky Carp. And the Beloit Supper Clubbers. So Cheese Balls, Moo, Polka Pike, Sky Carp, and Supper Clubbers. First, make your pick of your Beloit name.
My favorite would be Polka Pike, because for purely personal reasons, that I grew up with a polka station on the car radio all the time. And I grew up eating a lot of Northerns. And in Minnesota, they're not pike, they're Northerns. Not, walleye is a pike, Northern pike is a pike, pickerel's a pike, but not all anyway, not to get sucked down that rabbit hole.
To me, not from Minnesota. Minnesotans are Northerns.
Yeah, well, that's true too. We could go into the great delicacy that is the Northern, but anyway. I think that doing the polka theme is gonna get a lot of beer sales going on, and the marketing would be great. That would be my choice. I don't think they'll go that way.
I would be fascinated to actually see a pike dancing the polka. The description: Wisconsin residents have been tapping their toes to polka, the state's official dance, as long as they've been pulling fearsome pike from the Rock River, quote unquote. All right, so that would be your pick, but you think that they would go in a different direction?
Oh, they're going to go milk. They're going to go dairy, because the secret to the economics of sports in Wisconsin is that dairy boards and cheese boards have a lot of marketing money, and it would be silly not to have some sort of dairy-oriented theme to suck up some of that marketing money. So I think it'll be cheese ball or moo, depending on what the trademark people say. Because there's a Fremont Moo. There's already a summer collegiate team in Nebraska named the Moo. So that may be complicating.
What if instead of calling themselves the Beloit Moo, they call themselves the Dairyland Moo or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, but if it was me, I would have chosen as my pick as chief decision maker, I would absolutely go cheese balls. I'd go cheese balls. I think you'd have a lot of fun with that. Logo and uniform and what you'd eat at the ballpark. The cheese curds are delicious.
Yes, I totally agree. You're the marketing angle. You have the whole Dairyland, homeland thing here. So that I could see that. I got to admit, growing up in the Midwest and living here all my life, I've never heard the term sky carp. And that just seems to be such a quintessential, grandiose phrase. I mean, if you want
Okay,
to,
because of that, I have heard from somebody that I trust in minor league baseball. He saw those names and it goes, it's going to be the Sky Carp. That's the minor league baseball name out of them. That has the fish, that has it, it has the whole feel to it. You can already see the logo. Sky Carp, it is a slang term for a goose that would rather stay home in Beloit in the winter than migrate south, quote unquote.
yeah, except people in the Midwest hate those winter geese. I mean, they're pests, and a carp is not a very attractive fish either. It's a bottom feeder that you can eat if you smoke the hell out of it for a couple days. But it's just not. I can't imagine if they're doing any testing on it that anyone in Beloit's going to be going, yeah, we want to go to a carp game. So
There are other unattractive fish that have landed team names. Catfish. I remember the Columbus catfish. A catfish is not the prettiest of fish. It's
no,
another bottom feeder.
no, and at least it's alliterative. You
Yes.
know,
Well,
um,
that's
I mean,
true. None of these are alliterative.
it's a pretty solid set of names. Supper Clubbers it doesn't roll off the tongue. Um, it's gonna be popular because supper clubs are big in Wisconsin. You can do the whole branding that way. But I still think it's going to be cheese balls or moo.
Go in dairy. Put your
Golden
money
Dairy.
on dairy, whatever it is. All right. So that's a look at what's going on in minor league baseball. I've got your baseball thesaurus term, our baseball lingo for this Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. And without Mick here, I wanted to go into a term that is not utilized by broadcasters in terms of play-by-play, but in terms of talking baseball, in terms of talking about what's going on. Brass. We speak about brass as the folks at the top, the decisions, where they get made, the team's brass.
Yeah.
So I looked into my Dixon Baseball Dictionary. Why is brass a term for a team's management? Kevin, do you know this?
I have no idea. I suppose I would assume it's because there is something to do with the office setting of their duties.
Came
But
into
past that,
common use during World War II, a reference to the decorative gold braid on the bills of senior officers' hats, often used as a brass hat. So from the brass of the senior officers, it
okay.
was brought into baseball, and they're your senior members of the front office. They're your chief decision makers. So a
It would
military.
be a term that people would recognize in that era because what percentage of men served in the military in that
Exactly.
era?
Yep.
A lot higher than now. I mean, you
So
couldn't use that phrase now, but historically it made sense.
if you were sitting at home watching this going, military brass, of course. Well, there you go. There's your translation right into baseball.
It's not a term that's used enough. I should probably start using it more. That's a nice little reminder to go through your book the next couple 3 days and 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 take some of those older front office kind of phrases because people respond well to them every time. We describe tickets under different names, ducats, things like that. People say, oh my God, you brought that back. And it's like, I didn't really bring it back, but it's nice to see a term that no one else uses anymore, but people still recognize.
It just strikes that familiar chord. It's great and evocative, which I really appreciate. Here's an opposite for you. I received a message not all that long ago from somebody saying they were using in an academic setting. Hey, we need to get this right off the bat. Hey, guess where that's from? So I enjoy the baseball terms that make their way into real life entirely unrelated to sport.
Yeah, I don't know if you read the Wall Street Journal on the weekend. They have a word section where they examine the roots of a word, and I believe recently they did some sort of baseball related term that was in your book. So I didn't really pay close attention to it because didn't credit you, of course. I'm sure they didn't see in your book, but it's something you've written about, and I thought you wrote about it actually a little bit better. So
I really like understanding what we're saying and why we're saying it.
Absolutely.
There's all this irritation. Kevin, I don't know if there's anything that gets your goat, for another great turn of phrase. I interned in Montgomery under Jim Tocco, who would get very upset when people would say, instead of chomping at the bit, they would say chomping at the bit rather than champing at the bit.
Champing.
Or there are other phrases that people just get wrong based on what it should be, what it used to be. And so those whole ideas of everything moving forward, I think that it depends on the person, but pet peeves, another great phrase, come out from language and what is said and what should be said.
Yeah, towing the line is mine, because you never see anyone use that phrase correctly. So that's the big one for me. I know there's other ones that I'm sure if I sit and get mad enough, I'll think of more. But towing the line really is the top one for me.
How about the exception proves the rule? You've heard that?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love this because I read in explaining it that prove, now we say, well, when we say prove, we're like, aha, this shows you that it's right. This proves correct. But back then, the original meaning of prove was test. So in other words, the exception tests the rule, right, which is exactly what exceptions do. If there's a rule, if there's an exception to the rule, the exception tests should that rule exist or not. Yes. So the whole exception proves the rule means exactly the opposite of how people now use it.
Yeah, who was it that said that was it Edison who said a failed experiment is a success because you proved you can't do it that way? So it's that same sort of theme.
Yeah. Well, all right. Shall we call it a day right here?
Let's call it a day, and let's keep Mick in our thoughts. And poor dude, he's there with his wife and his kid, and I trust everything will work out fine for him and his family.
Look, in terms of a final thought from my mind, so we've got hurricanes threatening and causing power outages and damage where Mick is. We've got the wildfires on the West Coast and the terrible air quality that we have seen end, cancel, postpone baseball games and cause so much damage. So wherever someone is right now in this country, I hope that people are finding ways of staying safe, taking care of themselves and their loved ones.
Absolutely.
He's Kevin Reichard. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this has been your Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat.